pool way down low. Ain't no sun but the sun.
Most people think they know these songs. They've heard them at stadiums, in films, at weddings, on the radio, for decades. But here's what almost nobody knows: the actual stories behind how these tracks got made, nearly got killed before release, and ended up selling tens of millions of copies worldwide. Some of them were rejected by their own bands. One was saved by Michael Jackson. Another was nearly banned before it even hit stores. These are the 10 best-selling rock songs of all time, ranked by verified units sold, and the real history behind each one that the mainstream never bothers to tell you. Stay until the end, because number 1 still generates millions of dollars every single year. Number 10. Another one bites the dust. Queen. Let's get something straight right away. When Freddie Mercury introduced this song live, he called it "our little disco experiment." But Mercury didn't write it. The man behind one of the most recognizable bass lines in rock history was John Deacon, Queen's quiet, largely uncelebrated bass genius who rarely spoke to the press, rarely sought the spotlight, and yet repeatedly delivered some of the band's most commercially devastating material. Deacon built that razor-sharp bass line from the ground up, drawing direct influence from Chic's 1978 funk hit Good Times. He recorded it using a borrowed amplifier, then layered it with echo processing to give it that snapping, percussive quality that made it impossible to ignore. The result was a funk rock hybrid that sat completely outside of what Queen was doing on the rest of the Game album, and that was entirely the point. The track came out as the third single from The Game in 1980, and here's the detail most rock fans don't know. It almost didn't come out as a single at all. The band was uncertain. It was Michael Jackson, who had been hanging around the band backstage in Los Angeles during that tour period, who pushed Queen to release it. Jackson heard it, understood immediately what it was, and urged them not to sit on it. He was right. Another One Bites the Dust went straight to the top of the Billboard Hot 100 and held the #1 position for 3 consecutive weeks. It crossed genre lines in a way few rock songs ever had. It dominated rock radio, pop radio, and R&B radio simultaneously. It went on to become Queen's best-selling single ever, with over 12 million copies sold and over 1 billion streams on Spotify. It earned the band an American Music Award for Favorite Rock Single and a Grammy nomination. More than 4 decades after its release, that bass line remains required listening for bass players across every genre on the planet. Number 9. Back in Black. AC/DC. This was not just a song. This was a band publicly deciding whether it would survive at all. Bon Scott, AC/DC's original vocalist, died on the 19th of February 1980. He was 33. The band had a choice: dissolve or continue. They chose to continue, and they brought in Brian Johnson, formerly of the British band Geordie, to take Scott's place. Back in Black was the second single from the album of the same name, and it was written and recorded at Compass Point Studios under the strict production supervision of Mutt Lange. The song is built around a 3-chord riff, nothing complicated, nothing particularly technical. Angus Young has talked about how the riff came together quickly during rehearsals, almost as if it had always existed and they were just finding it. Lange pushed the band toward maximum clarity and precision. That voice was Johnson's proving ground. He wrote the lyrics himself, and critically, he chose not to write them as a mourning song. Back in Black is a celebration loud. The bell toll that opens the track is the only sonic nod to Bon Scott, a tribute that acknowledges the loss before the riff kicks the door down and announces what comes next. The song only reached number 37 on the Billboard Hot. Chart performance meant nothing. Time made it a monument. The Back in Black album has now surpassed 26 million units sold in the United States, earning two 6 times platinum certification from the RIAA, making it one of the best-selling albums in American music history across any genre. The single itself moved over 13 million copies in the US alone. Its cultural footprint expanded through decades of film and television. It's been used in advertising campaigns, sporting events, and action sequences so many times it has become the default sonic shorthand for raw power. The song also created public controversy when the Beastie Boys sampled it without permission, drawing a direct and very public rebuke from Angus Young. He was not diplomatic about it. Number 8. Wind of Change, Scorpions.
Don't you go keep on listening to
Klaus Meine wrote this song in his hotel room after performing at the Moscow Music Peace Festival in August 1989. He wasn't trying to write a political anthem. He was trying to document what he saw and felt, the weight of a moment in history when it seemed like something enormous was actually shifting. The concept of glasnost, the spirit of openness that Mikhail Gorbachev had been promoting, was visibly changing the atmosphere in Moscow. Meine wanted to put that feeling into music. What he produced was built around one of the most distinctive intro sequences in rock. A solo whistle melody, completely unaccompanied, immediately recognizable. Released as a single in January 1991, Wind of Change became a global phenomenon within weeks. It sold over 14 million copies worldwide and became entirely without anyone planning it that way. The cultural weight of this song became so significant that years later, serious journalists and researchers put forward theories suggesting the CIA may have had involvement in funding or promoting the track as a piece of soft power propaganda during the final years of the Cold War. The Scorpions have publicly laughed at this theory, but they've also acknowledged the deeper point it makes, that music reached people in ways that political messaging never could. Wind of Change was more than a commercial success. It became a generational marker. For millions of people across Eastern and Western Europe, it is permanently tied to a specific moment in their own lives. Songs that achieve that level of cultural embedding don't really age, they just keep meaning more as time passes. Number 7. Livin' on a Prayer, Bon Jovi. Written by John Bon Jovi, Richie Sambora, and professional songwriter Desmond Child, Livin' on a Prayer was released as the second single from Slippery When Wet in October 1986. It was not the album's lead single. That was You Give Love a Bad Name. But Livin' on a Prayer became the bigger song, the one that defined the album, the band, and in many ways, the entire decade. The track opens with Richie Sambora's talkbox guitar line, an effect that was already established in rock by that point. Peter Frampton had used it extensively in the 1970s, but Sambora deployed it with a directness and pop precision that made it feel like a signature rather than a borrowed technique. John Bon Jovi has spoken about how the song was constructed around a deliberate emotional arc. Structurally, the track does something unusual for arena rock of its era. The full chorus doesn't arrive until almost 3 minutes into the song. That's a long build by pop and rock radio standards. But when it lands completely an explosion of layered vocals and melodic release that became one of the defining sing-along moments of 1980s stadium rock. Livin' on a Prayer hit number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 Inches February 1987, giving Bon Jovi their first chart topper. The music video, filmed with John Bon Jovi suspended in a harness above an empty stage, received heavy rotation on MTV and became one of the most recognizable images of the decade. In 2024, the RIAA certified the track Diamond, confirming it had surpassed 14 million units sold in the United States. It remains the band's definitive song. Number 6. Africa, Toto.
I hear the drums echoing tonight.
Africa was the last song recorded for Toto the Four, and by David Page's own account, it came from a moment of genuine inspiration rather than professional calculation. He was sitting at a Yamaha CS80 synthesizer, a keyboard instrument known for its warm, layered analog sound, when a television documentary about missionary work in Africa came on in the background. Something clicked. He started sketching out what would become the harmonic and melodic foundation of the song. Jeff Porcaro, the band's drummer, developed the percussion pattern alongside Page. It's a combination of tribal-influenced rhythms and soft rock grooves distinctive from the very first bar, immediately identifiable to anyone who has ever heard it. No other song sounds quite like it, and Toto was a band full of professional session musicians who had played on hundreds of records. They knew what they were doing, which makes it more impressive that this particular track came together the way it did. Nobody in the band expected it to be a hit. This is documented. Steve Lukather, Toto's guitarist, reportedly told bandmates that if Africa became a hit, he would run naked down Hollywood Boulevard. The band treated it almost as an inside joke, a slightly indulgent, atmospheric deep cut that would appeal to a niche audience at best. Number 5, Bohemian Rhapsody, Queen. Released on October 31st, 1975, as the lead single from A Night at the Opera, Bohemian Rhapsody is, by almost any measure, the most structurally audacious single ever to reach mainstream commercial success. It runs nearly 6 minutes. It has no conventional chorus. It moves through a piano ballad section, a multi-tracked operatic passage, a hard rock section, and a quiet, reflective coda. None of these transitions prepared for, none of them signposted. Freddie Mercury wrote the entire thing himself and refused to explain it publicly in any serious way throughout his life. The recording involved 5 separate studios. The vocal harmonies in the operatic section required more than 180 individual vocal overdubs stacked across multiple tracks, pushing the tape technology of the era to its absolute limit. Producer Roy Thomas Baker has described how the tape became physically transparent from being run through the recording heads so many times. When Queen submitted the single to radio, the conventional industry wisdom was uniform. A song this long, this structurally strange, would never work on commercial radio. A single British DJ named Kenny Everett received an advance copy, played it on his show in full anyway, and his listeners responded so overwhelmingly that stations across the country had no choice but to follow. The rest is documented music history. Bohemian Rhapsody has now sold over 17 million copies worldwide. Its resurgence through the 1992 Wayne's World film, where Mike Myers and Dana Carvey lip-synced to it in a car, introduced it to an entirely new generation and pushed it back onto the charts nearly 2 decades after its release. The 2018 biopic of the same name amplified its reach further, and it has since become the most streamed song of the 20th century on Spotify. Every time someone shouts Galileo in a car or at a concert, they are participating in one of the most unlikely cultural phenomena in the history of popular music. Number 4, We Are the World, USA, for Africa. Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson wrote this song in a single night. One night. The session took place at Jackson's home studio following the American Music Awards on the 28th of January 1985. The track was recorded the following night at A&M Studios in Hollywood, with Quincy Jones producing. Jones famously posted a sign on the studio door that read, "Check your ego at the door." This was not decorative. 45 of the biggest names in American music were about to attempt to record a song together in a single session, and Jones understood that without a firm directive toward collective purpose, it wouldn't work. The artists who participated included Bruce Springsteen and dozens more. The recording captured individual vocal sections from each performer, assembled into a unified whole. Bob Dylan, by his own admission, was uncertain about his vocal contribution and reportedly asked Stevie Wonder to guide him through the melody via headphones during the session. Dylan has never been the most comfortable studio presence, and We Are the World was a long way from his natural working environment. Prince did not participate. He has never fully explained why. The single sold over 20 million copies worldwide, raised nearly $60 million in famine relief for Africa, reached #1 in multiple countries, and won 4 Grammy Awards, including Song of the Year, Record of the Year, and Album of the Year for the accompanying compilation. It proved definitively that popular music could mobilize genuine, large-scale humanitarian response, and that rock and pop operated in the same cultural space when the stakes were high enough. Number 3. It's Now or Never. Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley returned from his military service in West Germany in March 1960. He was 25 years old. The teen idol phase of his career was behind him, and the question, both for his management and for the public, was what came next. The answer arrived partly by accident. Elvis heard an English-language version of O Sole Mio, the classic Neapolitan song composed in 1898, performed by Tony Martin, and he responded to it immediately. His team commissioned a new adaptation with English lyrics written by Wally Gold and Aaron Schroeder. The recording session took place on April 3rd, 1960. It's Now or Never was released on July 5th, 1960, and the commercial response was immediate and overwhelming. In the United States, it hit #1. In the United Kingdom, the release was delayed due to a copyright dispute with the original Italian rights holders. The demand during that delay was so intense that by the time legal clearance was obtained and the single became available, it had already accumulated over 1 million advance orders in the UK alone. It debuted straight at #1, an almost unprecedented chart entry at the time. The song's significance went beyond sales figures. With its operatic vocal range, slower tempo, and Mediterranean melodic structure, it represented a clear and deliberate departure from the rockabilly sound that had defined Elvis's early career. It was Elvis announcing, commercially and artistically, that he intended to move into a broader, more mature musical territory. Nearly 20 million copies sold confirmed the public was ready to follow him there. In 2005, the song was reissued in the United Kingdom and climbed back to #1 45 years after its original release. Very few artists in any era can claim that. Number 2. Rock Around the Clock. Bill Haley and His Comets. Recorded on April 12, 1954, at the Pythian Temple in New York City, a venue more commonly associated with classical recordings and ceremonial events than rock and roll. Rock Around the Clock initially made almost no commercial impact. It was released as a B-side. It charted briefly and disappeared. Then, in 1955, the film Blackboard Jungle used it over its opening credits. The film was controversial. It dealt with juvenile delinquency and urban violence in American high schools. The choice to open with Rock Around the Clock was deliberate, and it worked as a cultural trigger in a way nobody fully anticipated. Teenagers responded to it as a generational statement. The song shot to #1 in the United States and United Kingdom and did not leave the cultural conversation for decades. Built on a classic 1-2 bar blues structure, driven by Danny Cedrone's guitar solo recorded in a single take, widely regarded as one of the most influential solos in early rock history, and anchored by lyrics that made the act of dancing all night into an act of generational defiance, Rock Around the Clock became the first rock and roll song to reach a truly mass audience. It was the gateway. According to Guinness World Records, it surpassed 25 million copies sold, making it the best-selling vinyl single by a group in recorded music history. It re-entered the charts multiple times throughout the 1960s and 1970s. In 2018, it was officially preserved by the United States Library of Congress in the National Recording Registry for its cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance. A record that didn't just sell, it created an entirely new market by introducing rock and roll to millions of people who had never encountered it before. Number 1. Don't Stop Believin' Journey. Released in October 1981 as the third single from Escape, Don't Stop Believin', was written by Steve Perry, Jonathan Cain, and Neil Sean. It was not the album's lead single. It did not have an obvious structural hook in the conventional sense. Its full chorus doesn't appear until the final section of the song, a deliberate compositional choice that was considered a significant commercial risk at the time. It didn't matter. The song connected with people on a level that defied conventional radio logic. In 2024, the RIAA certified Don't Stop Believin' Double Diamond, confirming it had surpassed 25 million units sold in the United States alone. As early as 2017, it had already been certified as the best-selling digital download of the 20th century, meaning no song originally recorded before 2000 had been downloaded more times in the digital era. That is a staggering data point for a rock track from 1981. Its resurgence began in two distinct waves. The first came in 2007, when series creator David Chase chose to use it in the final scene of The Sopranos, one of the most analyzed and debated television endings in history. The song went back onto the charts immediately. The second wave came in 2009 when Glee, the Fox musical drama, covered it for its pilot episode, exposing it to an entirely new generation of listeners who had no previous relationship with Journey or 1980s arena rock. Since then, it has become a stadium chant, a wedding reception standard, a karaoke institution, and a cross-generational musical reference point. In 2022, it was added to the National Recording Registry by the Library of Congress for its cultural resonance. It is the only song on this list that has sustained active commercial momentum across 5 consecutive decades. And based on current streaming and licensing figures, there is no indication that momentum is slowing. These 10 songs didn't just sell records. They marked moments in people's lives that nothing else can replicate. But commercial success is only one way to measure a song's impact. Some songs changed the actual structure of the music industry, how records were made, how they were distributed, how they were experienced. Those are the tracks we're covering next. The 10 songs that permanently changed the history of music.